Hello everyone. Today we are going to read our chapter 6, Civilizing the Native, Educating the Nation. In the earlier chapters, you have seen how British rule affected Rajas and Nawabs, peasants and tribals. In this chapter, we will try and understand what implication it had for the lives of students. For the British in India wanted not only territorial conquest and control over revenues, they also felt that they had a cultural mission. They had to civilize the natives, change their customs and values. What changes were to be introduced? How were Indians to be educated, civilized, and made into what the British believed were good subjects? The British could find no simple answers to these questions. They continued to be debated for many decades. How the British saw education. Let us look at what the British thought and did and how some of the ideas of education that we now take for granted evolved in the last 200 years. In the process of this inquiry, we will also see how Indians reacted to British ideas and how they developed their own views about how Indians were to be educated. The tradition of Orientalism. In 1783, a person named William Jones arrived in Calcutta. He had an appointment as a junior judge at the Supreme Court that the company had set up. In addition to being an expert in law, Jones was a linguist. He had studied Greek and Latin at Oxford, knew French and English, had picked up Arabic from a friend, and had also learned Persian. At Calcutta, he began spending many hours a day with pandits who taught him the subtleties of Sanskrit language, grammar, and poetry. Soon he was studying ancient Indian texts on law, philosophy, religion, politics, morality, arithmetic, medicine, and the other sciences. Jones discovered that his interests were shared by many British officials living in Calcutta at the time. Englishmen like Henry Thomas Colebrook and Nathaniel Halhed were also busy discovering the ancient Indian heritage, mastering Indian languages, and translating Sanskrit and Persian works into English. Together with them, Jones set up the Asiatic Society of Bengal and started a journal called Asiatic Researches. Jones and Colebrook came to represent a particular attitude towards India. They shared a deep respect for ancient cultures, both of India and the West. Indian civilization, they felt, had attained its glory in the ancient past but had subsequently declined. In order to understand India, it was necessary to discover the sacred and legal texts that were produced in the ancient period. For only those texts could reveal the real ideas and laws of the Hindus and Muslims, and only a new study of these texts could form the basis of future development in India. So Jones and Colebrook went about discovering ancient texts, understanding their meaning, translating them, and making their findings known to others. This project, they believed, would not only help the British learn from Indian culture, but it would also help Indians rediscover their own heritage and understand the lost glories of their past. In this process, the British would become the guardians of Indian culture as well as its masters. Influenced by such ideas, many company officials argued that the British ought to promote Indian rather than Western learning. They felt that institutions should be set up to encourage the study of ancient Indian texts and teach Sanskrit and Persian literature and poetry. The officials also thought that Hindus and Muslims ought to be taught what they were already familiar with and what they valued and treasured, not subjects that were alien to them. Only then, they believed, could the British hope to win a place in the hearts of the natives. Only then could the alien rulers expect to be respected by their subjects. With this object in view, a madrasa was set up in Calcutta in 1781 to promote the study of Arabic, Persian, and Islamic law, and the Hindu College was established in Banaras in 1791 to encourage the study of ancient Sanskrit texts that would be useful for the administration of the country. Not all officials shared these views. Many were very strong in their criticism of the Orientalists. Monument to Warren Hastings by Richard Westmacott, 1830, now in Victoria Memorial in Calcutta. This image represents how Orientalists thought of British power in India. You will notice that the majestic figure of Hastings, an enthusiastic supporter of the Orientalist, is placed between the standing figure of a Pandit on one side and a seated Munshi on the other side. Hastings and other Orientalists needed Indian scholars to teach them the vernacular languages, tell them about local customs and laws, and help them translate and interpret ancient texts. Hastings took the initiative to set up the Calcutta Madrasa and believed that the ancient customs of the country and Oriental learning ought to be the basis of British rule in India. Grave errors of the East. From the early 19th century, many British officials began to criticize the Orientalist vision of learning. They said that knowledge of the East was full of errors and unscientific thought. Eastern literature was non-serious and light-hearted. So they argued that it was wrong on the part of the British to spend so much effort in encouraging the study of Arabic and Sanskrit languages and literature. James Mill was one of those who attacked the Orientalists. The British effort, he declared, should not be to teach what the native wanted or what they respected, in order to please them and win a place in their heart. The aim of education ought to be to teach what was useful and practical. So Indians should be made familiar with the scientific and technical advances that the West had made, rather than with the poetry and sacred literature of the Orient. By the 1830s, the attack on the Orientalists became sharper. One of the most outspoken and influential of such critics of the time was Thomas Babington Macaulay. He saw India as an uncivilized country that needed to be civilized. No branch of Eastern knowledge, according to him, could be compared to what England had produced. Who could deny, declared Macaulay, that a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia? He urged that the British government in India stop wasting public money in promoting Oriental learning, for it was of no practical use. With great energy and passion, Macaulay emphasized the need to teach the English language. He felt that knowledge of English would allow Indians to read some of the finest literature the world had produced. It would make them aware of the developments in Western science and philosophy. Teaching of English could thus be a way of civilizing people, changing their taste, values, and culture. Following Macaulay's minute, the English Education Act of 1835 was introduced. The decision was to make English the medium of instruction for higher education and to stop the promotion of Oriental institutions like the Calcutta Madrasa and Banaras Sanskrit College. These institutions were seen as temples of darkness that were falling of themselves into decay. English textbooks now began to be produced for schools. Language of the wise. Emphasizing the need to teach English, Macaulay declared, all parties seem to be agreed on one point, that the dialect commonly spoken among the natives of India contain neither literary nor scientific information and are moreover so poor and rude that until they are enriched from some other quarter, it will not be easy to translate any valuable work into them. From Thomas Babington Macaulay, Minute of 2 February 1835 on Indian Education. Education for Commerce. In 1854, the Court of Directors of the East India Company in London sent an educational dispatch to the Governor General in India. Issued by Charles Wood, the President of the Board of Control of the company, it has come to be known as Wood's Dispatch, outlining the educational policy that was to be followed in India. It emphasized once again the practical benefits of a system of European learning as opposed to Oriental knowledge. One of the practical uses the dispatch pointed to was economic. European learning, it said, would enable Indians to recognize the advantages that flow from the expansion of trade and commerce and make them see the importance of developing the resources of the country. Introducing them to European ways of life would change their taste and desires and create a demand for British goods, for Indians would begin to appreciate and buy things that were produced in Europe. Wood's dispatch also argued that European learning would improve the moral character of Indians. It would make them truthful and honest and thus supply the company with civil servants who could be trusted and depended upon. The literature of the East was not only full of grave errors, it could also not instill in people a sense of duty and a commitment to work, nor could it develop the skills required for administration. Following the 1854 dispatch, several measures were introduced by the British. Education departments of the government were set up to extend control over all matters regarding education. Steps were taken to establish a system of university education. In 1857, while the sepoys rose in revolt in Meerut and Delhi, universities were being established in Calcutta, Madras and Bombay. Attempts were made attempts were also made to bring about changes within the system of school education. An argument for European knowledge. Wood's dispatch of 1854 marked the final triumph of those who opposed Oriental learning. It stated, "We must emphatically declare that the education which we desire to see extended in India is that which has for its subject the diffusion of the improved arts, services, philosophy, and literature of Europe, in short, European knowledge." The demand for moral education. The argument for practical education was strongly criticized by the Christian missionaries in India in the 19th century. The missionaries felt that education should attempt to improve the moral character of the people, and morality could be improved only through Christian education. Until 1813, the East India Company was opposed to missionary activities in India. It feared that missionary activities would provoke reaction against the local population and make them suspicious of British presence in India. Unable to establish an institution within British controlled territories, the missionaries set up a mission at Serampore in an area under the control of the Danish East India Company. A printing press was set up in 1800 and a college established in 1818. Over the 19th century, missionary schools were set up all over India. After 1857, however, the British government in India was reluctant to directly support missionary education. There was a feeling that any strong attack on local customs, practices, beliefs, and religious ideas might enrich native opinion. This was the part 1 of our chapter 6, reading of our chapter 6, Civilizing the Native, Educating the Nation. If you have any doubt or query, you can ask me in the comment section below. Also, you can find the links to other part and the other chapters in the description box below. Thank you everyone.